the fire, and the promise. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Maple Street, painting the old neighborhood in shades of amber and gold. James Mitchell sat on his porch, a weathered rocking chair creaking gently beneath him. His German shepherd, Duke, lay at his feet, ears perked and alert as always. 3 years had passed since James returned from his final deployment, and these quiet moments still felt like a luxury he hadn't quite earned. Duke had been with him through it all. The sleepless nights, the sudden sounds that made his heart race, the long walks at dawn when the memories became too heavy. The dog wasn't just a companion. He was a lifeline, trained to sense when the darkness crept too close. James ran his calloused hand along Duke's back, feeling the animal's steady breathing. The neighborhood was peaceful today. Children's laughter echoed from somewhere down the street. A car passed slowly, its radio playing softly through open windows. This was the life James had fought for, even if some days it felt like someone else's dream. Duke's head suddenly lifted. His body tensed, every muscle coiled like a spring. "What is it, boy?" James asked, leaning forward. The dog stood, his nose working the air. Then James smelled it too. Smoke. Not the pleasant aroma of a backyard barbecue, but something sharper, more urgent. Something wrong. Duke bolted down the porch steps before James could react. The veteran was on his feet instantly, years of training overriding the ache in his knee. He followed his dog across the street, toward the Miller house. The Millers had moved in 6 months ago. Sarah Miller, a busy executive always rushing to her car in crisp business suits, her phone pressed to her ear. And Emma, her daughter, a small girl with blonde curls who waved at James every morning, her smile bright enough to chase away the shadows for a while. Smoke was pouring from a side window of the Miller house. Not billowing yet, but steady and dark. Duke was already at the front door, barking with an intensity James had only heard in war zones. James didn't hesitate. He tried the door. Locked. His shoulder hit the frame once, twice. The old door gave way on the third impact, splinters flying as it crashed inward. Heat and smoke rushed out to meet him. James dropped low, pulling his shirt over his nose and mouth. Duke was already inside, disappearing into the haze. "Emma!" James shouted. "Emma, can you hear me?" His eyes burned. The smoke was thicker than he'd expected, filling the house faster than seemed possible. Somewhere in the distance, he heard sirens, but they sounded impossibly far away. Duke's barking came from deeper in the house. James crawled forward, one hand in front of him, following the sound. His training took over, pushing aside the fear, focusing only on the mission. Find the girl. Get her out. The living room was a maze of furniture and shadows. Flames licked at the far wall, moving toward the hallway with hungry purpose. James kept moving, trusting Duke, trusting his instincts. Then he saw her. Emma sat in the corner of her bedroom, clutching a teddy bear, her blue eyes wide with terror. She wasn't crying. She was frozen, paralyzed by fear and confusion. Duke stood between her and the smoke, as if he could hold it back through sheer will. "Emma, honey, I'm here," James said, keeping his voice as calm as he could manage. "We need to go now." She didn't move. James understood. He'd seen that look before, in different faces, in different places. The mind's way of shutting down when the world became too much. He scooped her up, tucking her head against his chest. She felt impossibly light, impossibly fragile. Duke led the way back, his dark shape visible even through the smoke, guiding them towards safety. The return journey felt longer. The heat had intensified. James could hear the fire now, a roaring, living thing consuming the house room by room. His lungs screamed for clean air. Each step was a negotiation with his protesting body. Then they were through the door, stumbling into the blessed coolness of the outside world. James carried Emma across the street, away from the flames, away from the danger. He set her down gently on the grass, checking her over. Soot marked her face, and she coughed, but her eyes were clear. Duke pressed against her, and Emma wrapped her arms around the dog's neck, finally crying, finally releasing the fear. Sirens filled the street now. Firefighters rushed past. Neighbors gathered at a safe distance, watching the smoke rise into the evening sky. Someone wrapped a blanket around James's shoulders. Someone else was asking him questions he couldn't quite process. He just watched Emma, making sure she kept breathing, kept moving. She was safe. That was all that mattered. The hospital kept them for a few hours. Smoke inhalation, they said. Observation and oxygen. Emma's mother arrived in a whirlwind of panic and tears, her business suit rumpled, mascara running down her cheeks as she held her daughter. Sarah Miller had been in meetings downtown when the call came. The 30-minute drive had felt like hours. Now she clutched Emma like she might disappear, whispering apologies and promises into her hair. James had slipped away quietly. He wasn't good with thanks or attention. Duke needed to get home. They both needed rest. But 3 days later, Sarah Miller appeared on his porch. She looked different without the suit. Softer somehow, more real. She held an envelope in her hands, but she seemed uncertain about it, like it suddenly felt inadequate. "Mr. Mitchell," she began. "James, I don't know how to thank you." "No need," James said quietly. "Anyone would have done the same." "But they didn't," Sarah said. "You did. You and Duke." She knelt down, and the German shepherd trotted over to accept her grateful touch. "The fire department said another 5 minutes, and—" She couldn't finish the sentence. She held out the envelope. "I wanted to give you this. I know money can't repay what you did, but I wanted you to have it. For medical bills, or whatever you need." James looked at the envelope but didn't take it. He'd seen checks before, offered with good intentions, but feeling wrong somehow. As if saving Emma was a transaction to be settled. "Keep it," he said gently. "Put it toward rebuilding. Or toward Emma's future." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Then what can I do? Please. There has to be something." James was quiet for a moment, watching Duke settle back at his feet. He thought about the lonely days, the silent house, the invisible walls that separated him from the world he'd returned to. "Your daughter waves at me every morning," he finally said. "When you rebuild, when you come back, maybe she could still do that. Maybe she could visit Duke sometimes. He likes having a purpose." Understanding crossed Sarah's face. "She asks about him every day? About both of you?" She paused. "We'll be staying with my mother while the house is repaired. We're not far. Could we visit this week?" James nodded. "We'd like that." Sarah stood to leave, then turned back. "You saved my whole world, James. I won't forget that. And I won't let Emma forget it either." As she walked away, James felt something shift in his chest. Duke leaned against his leg, and he rested his hand on the dog's head. Maybe healing wasn't about grand gestures or checks written to settle debts. Maybe it was about connection, about small daily reminders that you mattered, that your presence made a difference. The evening sun cast the same amber light across Maple Street. But somehow, the shadows seemed less heavy than before.